If someone had told me that accepting a six-figure check would change not only my bank account but also the shape of my heart, I would have laughed until I passed out. The day Theodore Ashford Cunningham III walked into my life started with cow manure on my boots. That's not a metaphor. It's literal. I was in the Morrisons' barn, helping Mrs. Ethel with the complicated birth of one of her Jersey cows, when I heard the engine purring outside. A different rumble from the tractors and beat-up pickup trucks that circulated through Meadowbrook, Kentucky. This sound was smooth, powerful, obscenely expensive. "Someone's lost for sure," I muttered, wiping the sweat from my forehead with my forearm, probably leaving a stain of something decidedly unglamorous on my skin. I left the barn still pulling off my procedure gloves, my red hair escaping from its messy ponytail, my overalls covered in, well, better not describe it. The sight that greeted me looked like bad Photoshop on the rural landscape. A black Bentley, gleaming like a groom's shoe, parked between the chicken coop and Mr. Morrison's crooked scarecrow. And stepping out of it, a man who clearly had never seen a barn in his life. Charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than my pickup truck. Perfectly styled dark hair. Sunglasses that hid his eyes but not the barely disguised expression of disgust when his Italian shoes touched the dusty ground. "Are you Magnolia Hayes?" His voice was deep, controlled, impatient. "Depends on who's asking and if I owe that person money." His lips twitched, not quite a smile, but almost. Theodore Cunningham. He removed his sunglasses, revealing eyes the color of aged whiskey. Beautiful, I'll admit, but cold as a Kentucky winter. "I need to speak with you, privately." I looked around. There were only chickens, 2 cows, and the scarecrow as witnesses. "Well, unless you speak chicken Welsh, I think we're pretty private here." He sighed, as if each second in my presence physically pained him. "This is about your Aunt Lorraine." My stomach sank. Aunt Lo was the only relative I had left, the woman who raised me after my parents died when I was 8. She'd been in Nashville for 2 months, working as a housekeeper for some rich family, while I held down the fort here, taking care of farm animals to pay the bills that never stopped coming. "Is she okay?" My voice came out small, vulnerable in a way I hated. "She's fine. In fact, she's the one who gave me your contact information." He pulled an envelope from the inside pocket of his jacket. "May I come in? This will take some time." 20 minutes later, we were in the tiny kitchen of my house, which looked more like a cabin stubbornly refusing to fall down. Theodore Cunningham occupied my wooden chair like a king on an uncomfortable throne, politely refusing the iced tea I offered, probably afraid of catching some mysterious rural disease. "I'll be direct, Miss Hayes. Maggie. Nobody calls me Miss Hayes unless I've broken something." Another almost smile. "Maggie, I need a wife." I spat out the sip of tea I'd just taken. "Excuse me, what?" "Temporary," he continued, as if discussing the weather. "My grandfather is sick, cancer, advanced stage. He has one wish before he dies, to see me married, settled, cured of my wayward bachelor life." He made air quotes, sarcasm dripping. His words, not mine. "And you thought, you know who'd be perfect? The hillbilly veterinarian who smells like manure? Your aunt has been working at the family mansion for 2 months. She mentioned you, a lot." He opened the envelope, revealing photographs. My photographs. Me at the county rodeo. Me helping at the agricultural fair. Me laughing with the church kids. "Aunt Lo's been taking secret pictures of me? I'm going to have a serious conversation with her. My grandfather saw you helping your aunt one day when he visited the mansion. He was enchanted. Said you remind him of my grandmother when she was young. Red hair, loud laugh, full of life." Theodore said this as if life were a contagious disease. "He insists you'd be perfect for me." "Mr. Cunningham." "Theodore. Theodore." I tested the name, too formal for my mouth accustomed to Teddy and TJ. "I'm not an actress. I'm not sophisticated. This morning I stuck my arm inside a cow, literally inside. I eat pie straight from the pan, talk too loud, and my idea of elegant clothing is jeans without holes. I know. He leaned forward, and for the first time I saw something beyond coldness in his eyes. Desperation, perhaps. That's exactly why it could work. My grandfather is tired of the Newport socialites I've dated. He wants authenticity. He wants someone who makes me feel again. And you don't feel? There's no time for feelings when you're running a $3 billion empire. He said this without arrogance, just as fact. 3 billion. I swallowed hard. What do you get out of this? My inheritance without legal complications. Total control of the company without board interference. He paused. And the peace of mind knowing I gave the man who raised me, who gave me everything, his last wish. Something in his voice got me. Beneath the ice, there was real love. And what do I get out of this? He slid a check across the table. My eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. That's... how many zeros? $500,000. Half now, half when the marriage ends. 3 months, Maggie. 12 weeks. You live in the Newport, Rhode Island mansion. Pretend to be my loving wife in front of my grandfather. And when he... His voice faltered. When he passes in peace, we each go our separate ways. $500,000. I could pay off all the farm debts. I could send Aunt Lo on that cruise she'd always dreamed about. I could finally open my own veterinary clinic instead of working odd job to odd job. I could breathe. There will be a contract, obviously, he continued. My lawyer will prepare everything. Nothing physical will be required beyond public appearances. Separate bedrooms, separate lives. Just a performance. I looked at that handsome, cold, desperate man sitting in my broken kitchen. I looked at the check. I looked at the pile of overdue bills on the side table that I'd been avoiding. When would you need my answer? Now. He checked a watch that probably cost more than a car. My grandfather is weakening rapidly. We don't have time for you to think about it. 3 months, 12 weeks, 84 days pretending to be someone I wasn't, alongside someone who could barely hide his disdain for my existence. What could go wrong? I need a pen, I heard my own voice say. Theodore Cunningham almost smiled. Almost. Excellent choice, Magnolia. It's Maggie, I corrected, signing my name on the contract he magically produced. And you're going to regret choosing me, Mr. Fancy Pants. This time he actually smiled. Small, quick, but real. Of that, Miss Hayes, I have absolutely no doubt. And that's how I, Magnolia Maggie Hayes, hillbilly veterinarian from Meadowbrook, Kentucky, became the fake wife of one of the richest men in America. Spoiler. In 3 months, I would break that heart of ice into 1,000 pieces, and mine along with it. Lesson 1 about marrying a billionaire. They don't pack their own suitcases. Lesson 2. They're horrified when you do. The transformation began exactly 36 hours after I signed that contract. Theodore, I still couldn't bring myself to call him Theo, and he definitely wouldn't tolerate Teddy, sent a team. Not a person. A team. They descended upon my little farmhouse like a well-dressed SWAT unit with fabric swatches instead of weapons. Miss Hayes, I'm Vivian Laurent, your image consultant. A woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a Parisian runway extended her hand without actually touching mine. Smart woman. I was elbow deep in kibble, feeding Mrs. Henderson's rescue dogs. Image consultant? I wiped my hands on my jeans. That's a real job? Her smile was practiced, patient, like she dealt with lost causes daily. Mr. Cunningham has requested we prepare you for Newport society. We have 72 hours. Behind her, 3 more people emerged from a Mercedes van. One carried garment bags. Another hauled a makeup case the size of my toolbox. The third just looked terrified of the chickens. Prepare me how exactly? Vivian's eyes scanned me from head to toe. I'd never felt so thoroughly catalogued in my life. Hair, wardrobe, etiquette, posture, diction. She paused. Everything. Everything? I crossed my arms. Lady, I'm supposed to be authentic, remember? That's the whole point. Authentic, yes. Unpolished, no. She gestured toward my house. May we? What followed were the strangest 3 days of my life. They taught me which fork to use for salad versus fish. I didn't even know fish had their own fork. They corrected my posture 17 times during one lunch. Apparently, I slouched like a barn cat, Vivian's words. They tried to tame my hair, but my copper curls fought back with the fury of generations of stubborn Irish women. It's hopeless, muttered Pierre, the hairstylist, after his third attempt. It's perfect, Vivian countered, surprising me. Natural, wild, romantic. His grandfather will love it. We just shape it. She said shape like it was a gentle suggestion, not a 2-hour ordeal involving products I couldn't pronounce. The worst part? The clothes. I can't breathe in this, I gasped, tugging at a cream-colored dress that Vivian called casual dinner wear. If this was casual, I was terrified of formal. You'll adjust. Beauty requires sacrifice. Beauty requires oxygen, I shot back. But when I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The dress hugged curves I didn't know I had. My hair fell in soft waves instead of its usual chaotic spirals. I looked like someone who belonged next to Theodore Cunningham. I hated how much I liked it. On day 3, Theodore returned. He actually knocked on my door at precisely 6 p.m., because apparently billionaires operated on atomic clock precision. I opened the door in jeans and my Kentucky Wildcats t-shirt, my one act of rebellion after 3 days of makeover hell. His eyebrow rose. I see the team made progress. They tried to kill me with uncomfortable shoes and fish forks. I survived out of spite. That almost smile again. Good. You'll need that spite in Newport. He handed me a small box. This is necessary. Inside was a ring. Not just any ring. A diamond that could probably fund a small country's economy, set in platinum so delicate it looked like frozen lace. Holy, I breathed. It was my grandmother's. Grandfather insisted. His voice softened. You don't have to wear it if... Are you kidding? I'm terrified I'll lose it in a pie. I slipped it on my left hand. Perfect fit. Of course it was. Theodore probably had my ring size investigated by private detectives. When do we leave? Tomorrow, 6 a.m. In the morning? I yelped. That's not even a real time. Welcome to my world, Magnolia. He turned to leave, then paused. The team said you did well, better than expected. Was that almost a compliment? Don't let it go to your head. But his eyes held something warmer than usual. Amusement, maybe. Pack light. Everything you need will be provided in Newport. After he left, I stared at the ring on my finger, watching it catch the porch light. In 24 hours, I'd be in Rhode Island, living in a mansion, pretending to be in love with a man who viewed emotions as inconvenient business obstacles. Aunt Lo called that night, her voice crackling with excitement over the phone. Baby girl, you sure about this? No, I admitted. But when have I ever been sure about anything? She laughed, that deep, warm sound that raised me through scraped knees and heartbreaks. Your mama, God rest her soul, always said you'd do something crazy and wonderful. She'd be proud. Or horrified. Both. That's how you know it's worth doing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through my little farmhouse, memorizing the creaky floorboard in the hall, the water stain on the kitchen ceiling shaped like Texas, the view from my bedroom window where fireflies danced in the summer darkness. 3 months, 12 weeks, 84 days. Then I could come home and pretend none of this ever happened. At least, that's what I told myself as I packed my battered suitcase, leaving the designer luggage Vivian provided empty out of pure stubbornness. I folded my favorite flannel shirt, my lucky Wildcats cap, and one photograph, Me, Mama, Daddy, and Aunt Lo at the county fair, right before everything changed. 3 months, I whispered to their smiling faces. I can do anything for 3 months. The ring caught the moonlight, winking like it knew secrets I didn't. Like it knew I was already lying to myself. If heaven had an interior decorator, they'd be jealous of the Cunningham estate. If hell had a rule book, it would be their dinner etiquette guide. The Cunningham mansion wasn't a house. It was a statement, a monument, a small European country disguised as a residence. Theodore's Bentley rolled through iron gates that probably cost more than my entire town, up a driveway lined with trees so perfectly manicured they looked photoshopped. The mansion rose before us like something from a fairy tale, if fairy tales came with security systems and annual maintenance budgets that could feed Rhode Island. You live here? My voice came out smaller than intended. Like, actually live here? Technically, I live in Boston. This is the family estate. Theodore shifted gears. Where grandfather resides. This isn't a house, Theodore. This is a museum that allows sleeping. His mouth twitched. Wait until you see your closet. So my closet turned out to be bigger than my entire farmhouse. Vivian's team had already filled it with more clothes than I'd worn in my lifetime, dresses in every color, shoes that looked like sculpture, and something called a resort casual capsule collection that required a manual to understand. This is insane, I whispered, running my hand over a silk blouse. The price tag was still attached, $3,000, for a shirt. Miss Hayes? A soft voice came from the doorway. A woman in her 60s, elegant in a simple black dress, smiled warmly. I'm Mrs. Patterson, the head housekeeper. Mr. Cunningham asked me to show you around before dinner. Is my Aunt Lo here? Her smile widened. In the kitchen, probably bossing Chef Maurice around. She's been so excited about your arrival. The tour was overwhelming. 14 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms, a library that could swallow a small town's collection, a ballroom I'd only seen in movies, and a kitchen where Aunt Lo indeed had a French chef in a headlock of affection. Magnolia June Hayes. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like home, lavender soap and hope. Look at you, baby girl. Look at this, I gestured around. Aunt Lo, what have we gotten ourselves into? She cupped my face, her eyes serious despite her smile. A chance, baby. A chance at something different. Before I could ask what she meant, Theodore appeared in the doorway. Grandfather wants to meet you. Now. My stomach dropped to my overpriced shoes. Theodore led me through hallways lined with paintings of stern-faced Cunninghams judging me from their frames. We stopped before a mahogany door. Remember, Theodore's voice was low, almost gentle. He's sick, but he's sharp. He'll ask questions. Just be yourself. The yourself you're paying $500,000 to pretend to be? The yourself he saw in those photographs. His hand hovered near my back, not quite touching. The real one. The bedroom was surprisingly cozy, filled with afternoon light. And in a chair by the window, wrapped in a cashmere blanket despite the summer warmth, sat Edmund Cunningham III. He looked nothing like I expected. Illness had shrunk him. But his eyes, Theodore's eyes, were bright, alert, alive with mischief. So you're the girl who's tamed my impossible grandson. His voice was weak, but warm. Tamed is a strong word, sir. I'm more like renting him for 3 months. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Theodore went rigid beside me. But Edmund laughed, a real belly laugh that turned into coughing. Oh, I like her. Theodore, you didn't tell me she was funny. I wasn't aware that was a requirement. Everything worth having requires humor, boy. Edmund gestured me closer. Sit, child. Tell me how you two met. And I want the real story, not whatever sanitized version Theodore prepared. I glanced at Theodore, who looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him, then at Edmund, whose eyes twinkled with knowing mischief. He knew. Somehow, This old man knew this was an arrangement, and he was going to make us work for it anyway. Well, Mr. Cunningham, I settled into the chair beside him. It started with cow manure and ended with your grandson's horrified expression. Let me tell you, it was hate at first sight. Theodore made a strangled sound. Edmund's laugh filled the room again. Oh, this is going to be entertaining. Tell me everything, Magnolia. And call me Edmund. We're family now. Family. The word hit different than expected. For the next hour, I told stories, real ones mostly. About Kentucky, about growing up with Aunt Lo, about my dreams of opening a veterinary clinic. Edmund listened like every word mattered, asking questions, laughing at the right parts, his hand occasionally patting mine with grandfatherly affection I hadn't felt since I was 8 years old. Theodore stood by the window, silent, watching us with an expression I couldn't read. You're good for him, Edmund said quietly when Theodore stepped out to take a call. I can see it already. Mr. Edmund, I know what this is, child. His eyes held mine. I'm old and dying, not stupid. But I also know my grandson. He hasn't smiled, really smiled, in years, not since his parents died. He squeezed my hand. Whatever this arrangement is, it's already changing him. I see it in how he looks at you when you're not watching. My heart did something complicated in my chest. I'm just a veterinarian from Kentucky. I don't belong in this world. Neither did my Margaret. His eyes grew distant, soft. She was a school teacher from a small town in Maine. Everyone said we were impossible. We had 47 beautiful, impossible years together. He focused on me again. Don't let anyone tell you where you belong, Magnolia. You belong wherever you choose to plant yourself. Theodore returned, and the spell broke. Grandfather needs rest, he said, professional mask back in place. Dinner, Edmund called as we left. Both of you, 7 sharp. And Magnolia, wear something that makes my grandson forget how to think straight. He needs the practice. In the hallway, Theodore finally spoke. I apologize for... Don't. I turned to him. Your grandfather is amazing. He likes you. Something flickered across his face. That's unexpected. What, that someone could actually like the girl covered in cow manure? That someone could make him laugh like that again. Theodore's voice dropped. Thank you. We stood there, in that grand hallway, the afternoon light painting us in gold. And for a moment, I forgot this was pretend. For a moment, the way he looked at me felt dangerously, impossibly real. Nothing prepares you for dining with the elite quite like the fear of using the wrong spoon and causing an international incident. I chose the emerald dress, not because Edmund suggested making Theodore forget how to think, but because when I put it on, I felt like someone who could survive this world for 3 months. Also, it made my eyes look less Muddy Creek and more forest magic, according to Aunt Lo. Theodore knocked at 7 exactly. Punctuality was apparently genetic. When I opened the door, he froze. Just for a second, maybe 2, but I caught it. His eyes traveled from my loosely curled hair, down the dress that hugged then flowed, to the ridiculous heels I'd already decided to kick off the moment dinner ended. You clean up adequately, he said, recovering his composure. You're still emotionally constipated, I see. I grabbed a shawl. Some things never change. His laugh surprised us both, actual, genuine laughter. Did you just laugh? I stared. Should I call a doctor? Are you having a stroke? I'm capable of humor, Magnolia. Evidence suggests otherwise. I took his offered arm, trying not to notice how solid it felt under my hand. Lead the way to this torture session you call dinner. The dining room could host a small wedding. Crystal chandeliers, a table long enough for a bowling lane, and more silverware than a restaurant supply store. Edmund sat at the head, looking frailer than this afternoon but smiling wide. There she is, my beautiful granddaughter-in-law. He gestured to the chair beside him. Sit here, dear. Theodore can brood from his usual spot. I don't brood, grandfather. You invented brooding, boy. Edmund winked at me. He came out of the womb scowling. Dinner started smoothly. Chef Maurice had outdone himself. Courses I couldn't name, but tasted like heaven, got culinary training. I managed the forks, remembered to place my napkin correctly, and even made small talk about Newport's sailing culture, despite never having been on a boat fancier than Mr. Henderson's fishing dinghy. Then the wine arrived. A 1982 Chateau Margaux, announced Martin, the sommelier, pouring deep red liquid into my glass with the reverence usually reserved for holy water. One of the finest Bordeaux vintages. I took a sip. It was wine. Good wine, sure, but wine. Thoughts, Magnolia? Edmund watched me with those knowing eyes. Honesty or performance? I caught Theodore's warning glance. Screw it. Honesty won. It tastes expensive, I said. But honestly, I prefer the blackberry wine Mrs. Henderson makes in her basement. It's probably illegal in 12 states, but it tastes like summer and bad decisions. Silence crashed through the dining room. Theodore's fork stopped mid-air. Martin the sommelier looked personally offended. Even the painting of great-great-grandfather Cunningham seemed to judge me from the wall. Then Edmund laughed so hard he started coughing again. Margaret, he wheezed between coughs. Margaret said the exact same thing about my father's prized port. Said it tasted like expensive regret. He wiped his eyes. Theodore, I told you. She's perfect. Theodore's expression softened as he looked at his grandfather. You did indeed. Tell me about this basement wine operation. Edmund leaned forward conspiratorially. Is it truly illegal? The rest of dinner became storytelling. I shared tales of Meadowbrook's colorful characters, Mrs. Henderson's moonshine wine, the annual pumpkin festival disaster of 2021, the time I delivered baby goats in the middle of a spring wedding. Edmund laughed until he cried, asking questions, completely enchanted. Theodore barely spoke, but I felt his eyes on me constantly, watching, calculating. Something else I couldn't name. After dinner, Edmund retired, exhausted but happy. Best evening I've had in months, he told me, kissing my cheek. You're a gift, child. Guilt twisted my stomach as I watched him leave. So frail, so genuinely happy about something fundamentally false. Walk with me. Theodore's voice came from behind. He led me through the mansion to a terrace overlooking the ocean. Moonlight painted the waves silver, and the sound of water against rocks filled the comfortable silence. You were incredible tonight, Theodore said quietly. High society is like swimming with sharks. They smell blood in the water, and authenticity is the deadliest wound. The Ashford Whitney brunch was held at their cottage, a 30-room oceanfront estate that made the Cunningham mansion look modest. Women dripped diamonds like rainfall. Men discussed stock portfolios over mimosas, and I felt like a farm animal accidentally let into a jewelry store. Smile, Theodore murmured, his hand at the small of my back as we entered. And for God's sake, don't mention basement wine. What about moonshine, tractor pulls, the time I wrestled a pig at the county fair? His lips twitched. Save those for when we need a quick exit. Victoria Ashford Whitney descended upon us like a perfectly coiffed vulture in Chanel, mid-50s, face frozen by procedures, smile sharp enough to cut glass. Theodore, darling, air kisses near both cheeks. And this must be the charming girl we've heard about. Her eyes raked over me like a price scanner. From Kentucky, wasn't it? Tennessee, I said sweetly, knowing full well she knew exactly where I was from. Easy mistake. We all look the same to people who've never left the coast. Theodore's hand tightened on my back, warning or amusement I couldn't tell. Victoria's smile turned glacial. How refreshing. Tell me, dear, what does your family do? My aunt is a housekeeper. My parents are dead, and I stick my arm inside farm animals for a living. I took a sip of mimosa. What does your family do besides judge people? Silence rippled through the nearby guests. Theodore turned his cough into what might have been a laugh. Victoria's composure cracked for a delicious second before she recovered. Well, how honest. She turned to Theodore. Your grandfather must be quite taken with her uniqueness. He is, Theodore said, his voice cool. As am I. His arm slid around my waist, pulling me closer. If you'll excuse us, Victoria, I see the Whitakers, and Maggie promised to tell them about her rescue clinic work. He steered me toward the gardens before I could protest. I just made an enemy, didn't I? I asked when we were alone near the rose bushes. You made several. He was grinning, actually grinning. That was magnificent. You're not mad? Mad? Maggie, I've wanted to say that to Victoria for 15 years. He looked at me with something like admiration. You just committed social suicide with perfect timing and zero regret. It's a gift. I shrugged. My mouth moves faster than my brain. It's refreshing. His thumb traced my hip through the silk dress, and I forgot how to breathe. Everyone here is so busy performing, they've forgotten how to be human. Even you? Especially me. The admission came quiet, vulnerable. Until you showed up covered in cow manure and insulted my Bentley. I never insulted your car. Your face did it for you. We laughed together, real and easy, and I wanted to freeze this moment forever. Theodore Cunningham! A voice boomed across the garden. A man in his 70s, built like a linebacker, barrel-rolled toward us. Is this the girl who told Victoria Ashford Whitney to shove it? I didn't say shove. Winston Fairchild. He grabbed my hand, pumping it enthusiastically. Retired judge, current troublemaker, and absolutely delighted by you. Victoria's been insufferable since her third husband left her. Someone needed to take her down a peg. Judge Fairchild was my grandfather's best friend, Theodore explained. 40 years of friendship, and I've never seen Edmund happier than he's been this week. Winston's eyes grew serious. Whatever you're doing, girl, keep doing it. That man deserves joy in his final days. The guilt returned, sharp and immediate. I'm just being myself, sir. Then yourself is exactly what he needs. He clapped Theodore on the shoulder. You too, boy. I've seen you smile more today than in the last 5 years combined. About damn time. As Winston wandered off to terrorize other guests, Theodore's phone buzzed. His face went pale. What's wrong? Grandfather, he's asking for us. His voice was tight. Now. The drive home was silent, tense. Fear radiated off Theodore in waves I'd never seen before. This untouchable, controlled man was terrified. We found Edmund in his room, looking smaller than yesterday, an oxygen tube in his nose that wasn't there before. Don't look at me like that, he rasped when he saw our faces. I'm dying, not dead yet. His eyes found mine. Come here, Magnolia. I sat beside his bed, taking his papery hand. I need to tell you both something. He looked between us. I've changed my will. Theodore went rigid. Grandfather. Hush, boy. This is important. Edmund squeezed my hand. The company, the estate, everything goes to Theodore as planned. But he paused for breath. Only if this marriage lasts 1 full year. My heart stopped. Mr. Edmund, I know what this is, he said gently. I've known from the start, but I also know what I see when you two look at each other when you think no one's watching. His eyes held mine. 1 year, Magnolia. Give him 1 year to learn how to feel again, to live again. He turned to Theodore. And you, my stubborn boy, give her 1 year to teach you that empire of yours means nothing without someone to share it with. You're manipulating us, Theodore said, but his voice cracked. I'm saving you. Edmund's breathing labored. Both of you. From the lonely lives you're so determined to live. He looked at me. 1 year, child. Will you give an old man's dying wish? I looked at Theodore. His face was a war zone of emotions, Anger, fear, hope, something that looked dangerously like longing. We'd signed up for 3 months. Edmund was asking for 12. 12 months of pretending. 12 months of this dangerous, confusing thing growing between us. 12 months of falling for a man who saw love as a business transaction. Yes, I heard myself say. 1 year. Theodore's eyes snapped to mine, shocked. Edmund smiled, satisfied. Good. Now get out, both of you. I'm tired, and you two have a lot to discuss. In the hallway, Theodore finally spoke. You didn't have to agree. Neither did you. He's my grandfather. I'd give him anything. He's the first family I've had since my parents died. I touched his arm. 1 year, Theodore. We can survive 1 year. Can we? He looked at me with those whiskey eyes. Because I'm starting to fear that when the year ends, survival won't be the problem. Then what will be? Letting you go. The words fell between us like bombs. Before I could respond, he walked away, leaving me in that hallway with my racing heart and the terrifying realization that I was already in far too deep. 3 months had become 12, and my heart had stopped pretending entirely. The problem with fake relationships is that real feelings don't read the contract. I didn't see Theodore for 2 days after Edmund's bombshell. He buried himself in work, leaving before dawn, returning after midnight. I knew because I heard him, his footsteps in the hallway, pausing outside my door, never knocking. On the 3rd morning, I found him in the library at 3 a.m. He sat in the dark, still in his suit, a glass of whiskey untouched on the side table. The moonlight through the windows painted him in silver and shadows. Couldn't sleep either, I asked softly. He didn't startle. You should rest. Grandfather wants to take you sailing tomorrow. Stop. I walked closer. Stop hiding behind schedules and obligations. Talk to me. About what, Maggie? His voice was raw, exhausted. About how my grandfather manipulated us into a year-long charade. About how I'm angry and grateful and terrified all at once. About why you're terrified. I sat across from him. The great Theodore Cunningham, afraid of a fake marriage extension. It stopped being fake. The admission came out like a confession. Somewhere between the cow manure and tonight, it stopped being fake, and that's the problem. My breath caught. Theodore, do you know why I never married? He finally looked at me. Not because I was married to my work or too busy or any of the excuses I've used for years. It's because everyone I've ever loved has left me. My mother died when I was 12. Cancer. My father crashed his plane 6 months later. Some said accident. Some said he couldn't live without her. His hands clenched. Grandfather is all I have left, and he's leaving too. I know this. I've prepared for this. But you... He stood abruptly, pacing. You weren't part of the plan. What am I then? A complication. A disaster. A woman who insults priceless wine and makes me laugh and looks at me like I'm more than just a balance sheet. He stopped in front of me. You're everything I didn't know I was missing, and in 12 months, you'll leave too. You don't know that, don't I? His laugh was bitter. You're here for money, Maggie. A transaction. When the year ends and the check clears, you'll go back to Kentucky and your real life, and I'll go back to being the Ice King everyone expects. Is that what you think? I stood, anger replacing sympathy. That I'm just here for the money? Aren't you? The slap happened before I thought it through. My palm connected with his cheek, the sound sharp in the quiet library. We both froze. I stayed, I said, voice shaking, because your grandfather reminded me what family feels like. Because Aunt Lo is happier here than I've seen her in years. Because somewhere in the last 2 weeks, I started to care about a stubborn, emotionally constipated billionaire who's too scared to admit he might actually feel something. Tears burned my eyes. But you're right. I should go back to Kentucky where people actually let themselves be human. I turned to leave, but his hand caught my wrist. Maggie, wait! Let go, Theodore. I can't. His voice broke. That's the problem. I can't let go. I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop wanting to hear your laugh or see you put stuck-up socialites in their place or watch you sit with grandfather like he's your family too." He pulled me closer. "I can't stop falling for you, and it's terrifying because in 12 months... Stop talking about 12 months from now." I cupped his face, feeling the warmth of the cheek I'd just slapped. "What about right now?" "Right now?" His forehead touched mine. "Right now, I want to kiss you more than I want my next breath. But if I do, this stops being pretend. It becomes real, and real things can break me." "Then break," I whispered. "Break with me." The kiss, when it came, wasn't gentle. It was weeks of tension, denial, and fear combusting into something that felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff simultaneously. His hands tangled in my hair, mine fisted in his shirt, and we kissed, like we were trying to prove something to ourselves. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Theodore rested his forehead against mine. "This is a terrible idea," he murmured. "The worst," I agreed. "Grandfather will be insufferably smug. Absolutely unbearable. And in 12 months, I kissed him again, softer this time. "In 12 months, we'll figure it out. But right now, in this moment, stop being Theodore Cunningham III, CEO of everything. Just be Theo. Be the man who laughs at my terrible wine preferences and looks at me like I'm the only real thing in his carefully constructed world." "Theo." He tested the nickname, a smile breaking through. "No one's called me Theo since I was a boy." "Good. It suits you better than the Ice King routine." He pulled me onto his lap, wrapping his arms around me like I might disappear. We sat there in the moonlit library, holding each other, pretending the dawn wouldn't come with all its complications. "Tell me about them," I said softly. "Your parents." And he did. For hours, Theo, told stories I suspected he'd never shared with anyone. His mother's laugh, his father's terrible jokes, the family they'd been before tragedy rewrote everything. I held him through the memories, through the grief he'd buried under ambition and ice. When Mrs. Patterson found us at dawn, still tangled together in the armchair, she just smiled and quietly closed the door. Later that day, sailing with Edmund, the old man took one look at us, at Theo's hand never leaving mine, at my head on his shoulder, at the way we'd stopped pretending entirely, and laughed until he cried. 47 years, he said, eyes twinkling. Margaret and I had 47 beautiful years because I took a chance on a schoolteacher from Maine who everyone said was wrong for me. He squeezed both our hands. Take the chance, children. Take the chance and don't let go. Theo kissed my temple. We won't, grandfather. I promise. And in that moment, on that sailboat with the ocean sparkling and Edmund beaming, I believed him. I believed that maybe, just maybe, our pretend love story could have a real happy ending. I just didn't know that in 2 weeks, everything would fall apart. They say you never see the storm coming. They're wrong. You see it. You just convince yourself you're strong enough to weather it. 2 weeks of bliss. 2 perfect stolen weeks where Theo and I stopped pretending and started living. Mornings sailing with Edmund. Afternoons where Theo taught me about the business, genuinely interested in my ideas. Evenings tangled together on the library sofa, talking until dawn. We were happy. Dangerously, impossibly happy. Then Charlotte Pemberton arrived. She swept into the mansion like she owned it. Tall, blonde, elegant in the way that comes from generations of old money and elite boarding schools. Diamond studs, her mess bag, smile that didn't reach her calculating blue eyes. Theodore, darling. She kissed both his cheeks while I stood there in jeans and one of Theo's Yale sweatshirts, feeling like a child playing dress-up. Theo's face had gone carefully blank. Charlotte. I wasn't aware you were in Newport. Daddy's yacht is docked for the summer. Her eyes finally landed on me, dismissive and sharp. And you must be the... girl. Maggie. I extended my hand. She looked at it like I'd offered her a dead fish. Theo's wife. How quaint. You call him Theo. Her laugh was crystalline, practiced. We always called him Theodore, more fitting for someone of his stature. Charlotte was my father's business partner's daughter, Theo said tightly. We grew up together. We were so much more than that. Charlotte moved closer to Theo, proprietary. Before Theodore decided to become a monk married to his company. She touched his arm. Though I see he's finally found someone willing to overlook his emotional limitations. That's enough. Theo's voice was ice. But Charlotte wasn't finished. She pulled out her phone, tapping quickly. You know, it's the strangest thing. I was having lunch with Victoria Ashford Whitney. Poor thing is still traumatized from your wife's performance. And she mentioned something curious. She turned her phone toward us. My heart stopped. It was a photograph. Me, in Meadowbrook, signing papers. With Theodore standing beside me, both of us looking serious, businesslike. The headline, Cunningham heirs mysterious marriage contract, love or business transaction. Someone leaked the story, Charlotte said, false sympathy dripping. About your little arrangement, the contract, the timeline, the rather substantial payment. Her smile sharpened. It's all over page 6, Theodore. Your fake marriage is about to become very, very public. Theo grabbed the phone, his face draining of color. How did you... Does it matter? By tomorrow everyone will know the truth. She looked at me with something like pity. The poor country girl hired to play pretend for a dying old man. It's almost Shakespearean. Get out. Theo's voice was deadly quiet. Now, Charlotte. I'm just the messenger, darling. She headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Theodore, the board is calling an emergency meeting. They're not pleased about this deception, something about integrity and public image. She smiled sweetly. See you tomorrow. The silence after she left was suffocating. Theo, I started. Don't. He was scrolling through his phone, jaw clenched. It's everywhere. Every gossip site, every business publication. They have pictures, details from the contract, quotes from anonymous sources. He looked up, and the vulnerability I'd grown to love was gone, replaced by the Ice King I'd first met. Someone close to us leaked this. It wasn't me. I know. But his voice was distant, already pulling away. But it doesn't matter who leaked it. What matters is grandfather. When he sees this, his voice cracked. He'll think I used his final wish as a business strategy. He'll die thinking I'm exactly the heartless bastard everyone believes I am. Then we tell him the truth. I grabbed his arm. We tell him it started as an arrangement, but it became real, that we fell in love. Did we? He pulled away, and his words cut like glass. Or did you fall in love with the lifestyle? The mansion, the money, the fairy tale? How dare you? Tears burned my eyes. After everything? After everything, you're still the girl who signed a contract for $500,000. The words came out cold, clinical. Maybe Charlotte's right. Maybe this was always just a performance. You don't mean that, don't I? He straightened his tie, every inch the corporate CEO. The board meeting is tomorrow. I need to do damage control, figure out how to save the company from this scandal. He headed for the door. You should pack. When this ends, and it will end, you'll want to leave quickly. Theo, please. It's Theodore. He didn't turn around. Theo was a fantasy. Time to wake up. He left, and I stood there in his sweatshirt, in the library where we'd shared our first kiss, feeling my heart shatter into 1,000 irreparable pieces. Mrs. Patterson found me hours later, still frozen in place. He's scared, she said gently. When that boy is terrified, he runs, always has. He thinks I'm a liar, a gold digger. He thinks he's about to lose everything that matters, so he's trying to lose it on his own terms first. She squeezed my shoulder. The question is, are you going to let him? I wiped my tears, anger replacing heartbreak. Absolutely not. That night, I did something reckless. I called every major news outlet, every gossip columnist, everyone who'd written about our scandal, and I told them the truth. All of it. The arrangement, yes, but also the love that grew from it. The dying grandfather who wanted to see his grandson happy. The walls that crumbled between a broken billionaire and a farm girl who taught him to feel again. I told them our story, the real one. By morning, my interviews were everywhere. The narrative had shifted from gold digger Con's dying man to modern love story when fake becomes forever, but the damage was done. When I went to Edmund's room, Theo was already there, sitting at his grandfather's bedside. Edmund looked smaller, frailer, the oxygen tube more prominent. "I heard," Edmund said weakly when he saw me, "about the contract, about everything." "I'm so sorry," I whispered, tears falling. "We never meant to hurt you." "Hurt me?" Edmund's laugh turned into coughing. "Child, I knew. I always knew. I told you that." He reached for both our hands. "But I also knew what I saw between you. Real love, growing in the cracks of a business arrangement." He squeezed our hands together. "The question is, are you two going to let the world destroy what you built? Or are you going to fight for it?" Theo's hand trembled in mine. "Grandfather, No apologies, boy. Just answer the question. Do you love her?" Silence stretched like eternity. Then Theo looked at me. Really looked at me. And the ice in his eyes melted into something that looked like coming home. "Yes," he whispered. "God help me, yes." "Then stop being a coward." Edmund smiled, despite his exhaustion. "And tell her, you stubborn fool." Theo turned to me fully, still holding my hand. "I'm terrified. Of losing you, of failing you, of being the kind of man who ruins beautiful things. I'm terrified that you deserve better than an emotionally damaged billionaire who pushes away everything good in his life." His voice broke. "But I'm more terrified of a life without you in it. So if you can forgive me for being an idiot." I kissed him, cutting off his words. "You're my idiot. Does this mean you're staying? For the full year? And maybe—" I smiled through tears. "Maybe we renegotiate after that." Edmund laughed, the sound weak but genuine. "Now that's settled. Both of you get out. I'm tired, and you have a board meeting to destroy." Sometimes the happy ending isn't the end at all. It's just the beginning of something infinitely better. The boardroom felt like a courtroom. 12 men and women in expensive suits sat around a mahogany table, their faces ranging from disappointed to furious. Charlotte sat in the corner, Victoria's smile barely concealed. Theo stood at the head of the table, every inch the powerful CEO. But his hand found mine under the table, holding tight. "Let's address the elephant in the room," Richard Blackwell, the lead board member, said coldly. "Your fraudulent marriage has made this company a laughingstock. The stock has dropped 6 points. Our investors are questioning your judgment, your integrity, your fitness to lead." "I understand your concerns," Theo said calmly, "and I'm prepared to address them." "By resigning?" Charlotte interjected sweetly. "It's the only way to salvage the company's reputation." "No." I stood, surprising everyone, including Theo. "By telling you the truth." "Miss Hayes," Richard started. "Mrs. Cunningham," I corrected firmly. "And I'm not here as the country girl who doesn't belong. I'm here as someone who understands what this company really needs." I pulled out my tablet. Theo had taught me well these past weeks. "You're so focused on scandal, you've missed the actual story. Since our fake marriage became public, your social media engagement is up 43%. Younger demographics, the ones you've been failing to reach, are calling it romantic, authentic, real." I pulled up charts, data, the flood of positive responses to my interviews. "You think this is a scandal? I say it's the best publicity you've had in years. People don't want corporate perfection anymore. They want humanity. They want to believe that even billionaire CEOs can fall in love. But it was contracted, another board member protested. It started that way, Theo interrupted, standing beside me. An arrangement to give my dying grandfather peace. But somewhere between Kentucky and Newport, between business and pleasure, I fell in love with my fake wife. He looked at me. Completely, irrevocably, inconveniently in love. The room fell silent. You want to question my judgment? Theo continued. Fine. Judge me for being human enough to fall in love. Judge me for prioritizing my grandfather's happiness over corporate optics. But don't you dare judge me for choosing the best thing that's ever happened to me. His voice strengthened. Maggie has brought more innovation, more genuine connection, more heart to this company in 6 weeks than any consultant you've hired in 5 years. If you can't see that, then maybe you're not the board this company needs. Richard leaned back, studying us both. Those are bold words for a man whose inheritance is contingent on this marriage lasting a year. Then I'll earn my position without the inheritance. Theo's voice was steel. I'll buy controlling shares independently, rebuild from the ground up if necessary. But I won't walk away from her. Not for this company, not for the money, not for anything. My heart threatened to burst from my chest. Charlotte stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. You're letting emotion cloud. Sit down, Charlotte. Richard's voice cut like a blade. We've all known about your feelings for Theodore. Your father's company benefits significantly if Theodore fails here. He pulled out his own folder. We also know you orchestrated the leak. Security footage shows you leaving Theodore's office with confidential documents 2 weeks ago. Charlotte's face went white. You're fired as a consultant to this board, Richard continued coldly, and your father's company will face a lawsuit for corporate espionage. He looked at Theo. As for you, Mr. Cunningham, you're right. This company needs humanity. It needs evolution. He stood, extending his hand. The board votes to retain you as CEO, but we also vote to bring Mrs. Cunningham on as special consultant for brand innovation, if she's willing. I looked at Theo, whose eyes held nothing but pride and love. I'm willing, I said, but only part-time. I have a veterinary clinic to open in Kentucky, and this company needs to understand that life exists outside boardrooms. Richard smiled. Actually smiled. Agreed. Welcome to Cunningham Industries, Mrs. Cunningham. As we left the building, Theo swept me into his arms, kissing me in front of the cameras, the protesters, the whole watching world. You just rewrote my entire life, he murmured against my lips. Our life, I corrected. And we're just getting started. 18 months later. They say fairy tales aren't real. They've clearly never met a stubborn farm girl and a reformed ice king. The clinic opened on a perfect October morning. Meadowbrook Veterinary Care and Rescue, the sign read, funded partially by my earnings, partially by an anonymous donation that I absolutely knew came from my husband. Yes, husband, real husband now. We'd renewed our vows 6 months ago, in the same church where my parents married, with Aunt Lo crying in the front row and half of Kentucky in attendance. Theo wore jeans, actual jeans, and I wore my mother's wedding dress, and it was perfect. Edmund had passed peacefully in his sleep 2 months after that board meeting, holding both our hands, his final words. 47 years was good, but you two, you're going to make it 50. Now Theo split his time between Boston and Kentucky. The company thrived under his leadership, more human, more innovative, more real. He discovered that happiness didn't mean weakness. It meant strength he'd never known he possessed. Mrs. Cunningham? Jenny, my new vet tech, poked her head into my office. Your 3 o'clock is here. Cow in labor seems complicated. I grabbed my bag, grinning. Some things never changed. Theo was waiting by his truck, not the Bentley, but an actual pickup he'd bought and insisted on learning to drive. He still drove it like a cautious grandpa, but he was learning. Thought you had a conference call? I asked. Rescheduled. He kissed my forehead. I'm not missing our first complicated birth together. I've been practicing my moral support face. You mean you're trying not to faint face? That's the one. At the Morrison farm, still run by the same sweet Ethel who'd been there the day we met, we worked together. Theo held the flashlight, handed me tools, and only turned green twice. When the calf finally came, healthy and perfect, he looked at me with such awe. "You're incredible," he whispered. "We're incredible," I corrected, covered in birth fluid and glory. That night, in our home, the renovated farmhouse on the property I'd grown up on, we lay on the porch swing, watching fireflies dance. "Any regrets?" Theo asked, playing with my hair. "About signing a contract with a stranger for money," I pretended to think. "Only that it took me so long to realize I'd marry you for free." "Smooth talker." He pulled me closer. "For the record, I'd pay double now to keep you." "You can't afford me anymore, Cunningham. I know what I'm worth." "Everything," he said seriously. "You're worth everything." In the distance, the clinic lights glowed warm. In Boston, Cunningham Industries thrived. In heaven, Edmund probably smiled knowingly. And here, in this perfect moment, a farm girl and a billionaire who'd learned to be human built their impossible, beautiful life. "Hey, Theo," I said softly. "Yeah, Magnolia. Thank you. For the cow manure day, for the terrible proposal, for being brave enough to break. Thank you for teaching me how to put myself back together." He kissed the top of my head. "Want to know a secret?" "Always." I knew. His voice held a smile. "That day in your kitchen, when you signed the contract covered in farm mess and defiance, I knew you were going to ruin me in the best possible way. And yet you still proposed. Best terrible decision I ever made." Above us, stars scattered across the Kentucky sky like diamonds. Somewhere in Newport, the mansion stood empty but cared for, waiting for holidays when we'd return. Somewhere in Boston, an empire ran smoothly with heart. And here, in this moment, love that started as a transaction had transformed into something that couldn't be bought, sold, or contracted. Just lived, fully, messily, perfectly lived. 50 years, I whispered, remembering Edmund's words. "At least," Theo promised. "Probably more. You're stuck with me, Mrs. Cunningham." "Wouldn't have it any other way, Mr. Cunningham." And as the fireflies danced and the night sang around us, two people who'd started as strangers with a contract ended as lovers with a lifetime, proving that sometimes the best love stories are the ones that begin with the most unlikely first chapter. The end.